Started, and the Deputy Borough President and the Borough President are going to join us in a little bit. But they're in another breakfast meeting right now, so give them a few minutes. Everybody has a copy of the agenda. Everyone signed in. Everyone checked in. They got their placards and everything. We're all good? All right, terrific. So for those of you that I did not meet last month or today, my name is Andrew Gennardis. I'm the new counsel to the Borough President. I was here last month. That was my second day when you had your Borough Service Cabinet. So I was kind of off to the side just observing and taking notes. But I'll be doing the Borough Service Cabinet meetings from now forward. So good to see you all today. We're going to do a quick roll call of the community boards and the agencies, and then we'll go right into our agenda. Start with the community boards. Community Board 1. Here. 2. 3.
Here.
4.
Here.
5. No 5. 6.
Here.
7.
Here.
8.
Here.
9.
Here.
10.
Present.
11.
Present.
12. No 12. 13.
Here.
14. 15.
Here.
16.
Here.
17. 18. Okay. Agencies. Administration for Children's Services. Aging. Public Library. Buildings. City Planning. DCAS. Commission on Human Rights. Con Ed. Consumer Affairs. Corrections. DDC. Department of Housing and Urban Development. DEP.
Here.
Finance.
Here.
Fire.
Present.
Health and Mental Hygiene. Homeless Services. HPD. Human Rights Administration. Human Resources, sorry. Human Resources. Do It. National Grid. New York City Transit.
Here.
CAU. Parks and Recreation. Police Brooklyn North.
Yeah.
Police Brooklyn South. Probation. Sanitation Brooklyn North. Sanitation Brooklyn South. Small Business Services. Transportation.
Here.
DYCD.
Here.
U.S. Postal Service. 311. State Comptroller. All right. Moving along. So welcome everyone to our March Borough Service Cabinet meeting. Just have 2 quick announcements, and then we'll open the floor to any other announcements that you have to share before we hit the agenda. Oh, sorry, I also want to thank Ethan Luzig from Councilmember Mark Traeger's office, who's here somewhere in the back. So thank you to the councilmember for joining us. On Monday, March 17th, the Borough President will be hosting a St. Patrick's Day breakfast here at Borough Hall in celebration of Irish culture and heritage. And on Tuesday, March 18th, we'll be celebrating Women's History Month here at Borough Hall. If you're interested in attending either of these events, just please contact us by emailing specialevents@brooklynbp.nyc.gov. Oh, and our Borough President. I just finished. I just made some announcements about the upcoming events, and we'll turn it over to you.
First of all, good morning.
Good morning.
We had just had a great meeting with the Brooklyn College presidents, where we're finding out some of the services that they provide. And the goal is really just to team up with all of the Brooklyn institutions, the local CBOs, our college institutions, our corporations, and partner with them to look at some of the pre-existing programs that they have and see how do we connect with everyday Brooklynites. One of the processes that we are going to do in the upcoming months is we're going to attempt to map the borough to identify those areas where there are very real service deserts and see how do we utilize the team here at Borough Hall and utilize the local community-based organizations, local faith-based institutions, and just really start to have organizations without walls. Allowing our CUNY, the men and women in CUNY, they have several programs around allowing the students to provide everyday resources and services to the borough. And so our goal is, in the next couple of months, is to really just start the process of organizing and connecting resources together and making sure the people on the ground are receiving those resources. An awesome task. If you drive past Borough Hall any weekend at 1 in the morning and look up at that office of mine, you see the lights are on because we realize just how awesome this task is. We have so many service providers, and even in your capacity, both professional and volunteer, you are aware that many of us are attempting the best way we can to provide the services that everyday Brooklynites need. It's as though sometimes I feel as though we have these talented musicians all playing a different note. And somehow we have to get us all on the same song, the same page, the same sheet of music, so that the symphony is playing the tune that we wanted to play. You know, I visit some blocks in some neighborhoods where we have 2 and 3 organizations on the same block, and don't even know each other exists. And government resources have become so scarce that if we do not have a paradigm shift, if we do not have a different model to be able to utilize and collaborate, the tone we use in Borough Hall now, the goal is collaboration, not isolation. If we don't collaborate with each other, we're going to find ourselves frustrated because more and more those resources are drying up. And those of you who run particular agencies, you're hearing the calls as much as we're hearing the calls. The more and more the resources are drying up, the more and more people are calling us, asking us for assistance. And government can't do it on their own. We have to start mobilizing all Brooklynites as well as all New Yorkers in a very real sense. Everyone has to be on the game. There's no more room in the bleachers for people to sit in the fields and be detached spectators. Everyone must be on the field and everyone must be giving back in some real and some meaningful way. And that's what Borough Hall wants to do. And people are saying that it's not possible because Brooklynites and organizations and communities can't operate in symphony. And I say, like hell it isn't. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult it's going to be, the timing is now. People are hurting. And hurt people hurt people. And I see it every day. And so I'm energized. I am encouraged. We have a solid team here at Borough Hall. I'm happy that my deputy has really bought on to this idea, and she brought it here with her same energy and spirit. We have good people in here that want to do some very real things, and there's sometimes I may miss a meeting or two because I'm really trying to wrap my hand around what it is to be responsible for a borough like this. We have 2.5 million people. We dwarf. The rest of the boroughs are small midgets to compare to us. Some have, we double the size of the Bronx. The Queens is nowhere near us, and Staten Island is, their capacity is nowhere near our numbers. This borough is huge. And, I'm coming here with a vision. And my vision is really to improve the quality of life of Brooklynites. That's my vision. And that's the vision I had as a cop. That's the vision I'm going to have as the borough president. And so I just want to come in and say, bear with me if I miss a few meetings. And sometimes you're in the building and I'm next door doing some other things or organizing. Every once in a while, my counsel or my deputy grab me and say, you know, stop in and say hello. I would like in the next couple of months just to be here throughout all the meetings, because my goal is to sit here and hear from you. But right now, I'm just trying to put these pieces together. And for the first 2 weeks, I was overwhelmed. You know, I felt like I had 2 jobs in a paper route, you know. It was just nonstop, and I'm finally finding my footing. I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable about the various pieces here. And so I will be able to spend more time of hearing from you, because you're part of what makes the borough tick. And I want to spend my time in this room with you when we have these meetings, because I think it's important. But I didn't want to embarrass the borough, and I didn't want to embarrass you by not being prepared. And it took me a while to do so. There was a learning curve. I had to get over that learning curve. There was a lot of things I had to learn, and you know, I will never beat you with brilliance, but I'll beat you with endurance. I don't know surrender, and I will study as hard as it takes to be the student that I need to be. And so I just really want to come in and say thank you, and I want to thank my counsel always give me the right notes. I want to thank Andy for the Black History Month event with the seniors. It was a great program that we did. We have a Women History Month program coming up as well. So, you know, you're all invited. And I want you to use this building with your different organizations, you know. Please use this building. You know, we have space here. You have the community room, we have the courtroom. You know, what's the use of having a beautiful place if it's never being used? You know, I want folks to walk past this building and have great experiences that they had inside this building. And so if you have any local events, you know, coordinate with our staff and have the opportunity for people to come in here. Our school children, every school child here should have a field trip of coming to Brooklyn Borough Hall so they can know that this building is their building. When I go to classrooms and I ask young people, how many of you have ever been to Borough Hall? Rarely do I see hands go in the air. They look at this structure, they are intimidated by it, they walk past it with their parents, and even some of the parents, people don't come inside the places that are part of their taxpayer dollars. And I want people to no longer to be intimidated by the governmental entities and services in this borough. So this is your building, this is your place. Use it, use our office as much as you need to, and I want to be your partners to make Brooklyn a better place. One Brooklyn. That's our concept. I said it at my inauguration. I said it on the campaign trail. I said it every day that I'm in this building. One Brooklyn. We don't want to be in first place, because you could be in first place and deliver nothing. We want to be a unified borough from Brownsville to Bensonhurst to Coney Island to Bath Beach. We want one Brooklyn, one theme, one banner, all of us in this borough together, and making sure that we're raising healthy children and families, and that's my goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President. I can't help but when he speaks, he sounds like a preacher, so I tend to clap. I would like to invite our district managers right now to announce any special events or announcements that you'd want to share at this moment. Nothing's happening in your districts? We got to change that. Something's wrong. Oh, over here.
That's this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at Restoration Plaza, 1360 at Fulton Street. It will be moderated by Dr. Lester Young. Councilman Carnegie will be there. Also, Superintendent Santiago, District 16, will also be part of the panel. Chairperson Tremaine Wright and Ms. Felicia Alexander, who's the president of the Citizens Education Council. So that's this Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Restoration Plaza, 1360 at Fulton Street. It's a discussion about the state of education in District 16 and 13. It's not a debate as to what's better, charter schools or public schools. It's a discussion on how do we improve education for all the students in District 16 and 13. Thank you.
Excellent. And part of this exercise is to really learn from one another as to what other districts are doing that perhaps we should be emulating, so that we want to be able to build our capacities with one another. And so I hope that as we engage you at the Borough Service Cabinet meeting, that you hear some of these great ideas so that we are able to have those types of discussions and ideas going into and spilling into your own districts. Yes, Craig.
Good morning. At last night's executive committee meeting, the Community Board's executive committee adopted a resolution calling on the state government to reenact or resuscitate a bill that was originally sponsored by then Assemblyman Scott Stringer, something called the Community Board Notification Bill. Because in the last few months, in our board alone, we've seen Long Island College Hospital's plans being reviewed by the State Department of Health, who did not contact the Community Board to let us know they were doing that. We've seen the Prospect Park residents, a senior home on Prospect Park West, have plans approved by the Department of Health to close the facility. And we've seen the State Office of Historic Preservation review and approve a plan to designate the Gowanus Canal a historic district, none of which involved any notification to the Community Board whatsoever. So this Community Board notification bill that was sponsored, had to be at least 20 years ago by Scott Stringer when he was an assemblyman, would call upon state government agencies to notify, not consult, not request a review, but simply to notify the community boards of any actions of any state government agencies that affect our districts. So we're going to be calling upon our state legislators to reintroduce this bill and calling upon the governor to sign it into law.
You're right, you should be notified, but what we would do also, we'll reach out to the governor's office, and I believe that he can also do an executive order where he could notify his agencies to ensure that proper notification is done, because sometimes legislation slowly moves through Albany, and we shouldn't have to wait for a law to make sure that the community boards are notified. So we would do that today. We would draft a letter and call on him to do an executive order of notifying his agencies that that type of notification should take place. And we'll speak with Dan Squadron, who shares space here in the building, to see if he will reintroduce the bill, and I'll reach out to Assemblyman Kareem Kamara and see if he will introduce it into the Assembly. So if you could give us the bill number, if you know it offhand, I'll have my staff research it, but that's a good bill, and we'll try to move it forward.
Thank you. We appreciate your support and leadership.
Excellent. So now, no other announcements. Oh, one more.
The hot topic in our district right now is rezoning and all types of zoning. So next Monday on the 17th, we're having a listening forum at the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens from 7 to 9. And it's to listen to all the different folks in our district who all have very varying opinions of what they would like as far as the type of zoning in our district. So we're having a listening forum. We're not determining what the zoning is going to be or changed, or if the ones that we have, if it's the right one. It's a listening forum to see what exactly the community would like to see. Do you want inclusionary housing? Do you want affordable housing, small retail?
Manufacturing.
Whatever it is that you see the vision for the district, we are listening, and that would now go to the board, and then we'll ask city planning to help us with that design as the process moves along. So on the 17th, if you know any folks living in our district that you want to come, it's on the 17th at the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens. It's 1000 Washington Avenue, and it's from 7 to 9. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great idea, and many of you know Richard Barrett. we will make Richard available to answer any questions that you need. So we'll have someone there to make sure that, they answer any questions, any assistance you need, coordinated with our office. We have a couple of people who are planners on board, so we'll fill those questions to be able to, to answer the question. That's important, because that conversation is important.
City planning is coming
Okay.
too.
Excellent.
The 17th, yeah, Monday.
Wonderful. Yes, of course, Community Board 4.
With it, Community Board number 4. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to say that Community Board number 4 has sat down through its Environmental Protection and Transportation Committee to work with transportation alternatives, to start having some community forums on pedestrian safety within our district. And that seems like something that should be just germane and that would naturally happen. The difference here, I believe, is that we, at the community board level, have rolled up our sleeves and become very transparent with this organization. And as you may know, or some of you may not know, Transportation Alternatives has done some wonderful things within certain parts of the district with certain people. However, we made a commitment to them that when they work with us, we want to work with all of us. We're going to be inclusive. We don't want to see the Sunday morning meetings where people who are in Bushwick go to church. We want to have meetings where everybody can come out and talk to the different transportation issues. So before we begin those forums, we ask them to come to us and present us with their listing of organizations that have joined them already, and to expand that list to represent all of our community. So as this shapes up and looks more solid for us, we'll bring other information to it. But the end-all idea is to bring forth transportation issues for pedestrian safety. And once that's done, we hope that your office will buy into it with us.
And I thank you. I think, great minds think alike. We are hosting a pedestrian safety meeting here. We'll get the date to you. Do we have it? Yes. And we're bringing in as many community-based and traffic safety organizations as well. And Abe Freeman, who's coordinating that meeting here, we'll make him available to you to give you the list of names and organizations that we have so we can coordinate together. And I will encourage all of the community boards to host similar meetings. We've all witnessed the increase in traffic fatalities that have taken place in the city. And as our streets become more complicated, based on the usage from the increase in bike ridership, from skateboards to just people walking every day, we want to have a re-examination of traffic safety habits. And so I will encourage you all to do the same, to have these meetings and discussions and, create documents that we can produce to help talk about how do we have our streets as safe as possible. So we will be holding a similar meeting here. Rabbi A. Freeman, who's coordinating that meeting, he will coordinate with you whatever assistance we can show here at Borough Hall. We would like to do so.
Excellent. And the last announcement, I encourage this, so now I'm the product of my own.
Very happy note to which I hope everybody in this room will be there. Borough President joined us yesterday for the groundbreaking for a brand new roller coaster, which will be part of a whole exciting summer and beyond in Coney Island. And it bears the name of the long gone Thunderbolt. And it's, well, you just have to be ready for it. But we're getting ready for all of you, and we hope you all join. I'll let you know on the opening day, so those of you who are brave enough, we can all go on it. Thank you.
Chuck, you still have the teacups for those of us who fear death, right?
And the first one.
And let's be accurate. I made it clear at that announcement that I will be watching the roller coaster from the ground.
Thank you so much. I know that we have an outstanding matter at Community Board 13's communications infrastructure. We're working on that. Our Borough President and Borough Hall is actively working with Do It, who has already went to conduct a site visit to understand the complexities of what is multiple shutdowns of their lines. And so I'm happy to hear that there's progress, slow progress, but nonetheless progress. Having said that, I wanted to just thank offices that have joined us here today. Councilmember Darlene Mealy's office, Mr. Wiggins is here. Councilmember Robert Cornegie, Representative Ms. Gross is here. Representative Rachel Webster, Councilmember Jamani Williams' office is here. Thank you. Councilmember Stephen Levin, Representative Lisa Bloodgood is here. And I'd like those representatives to stand up. Don't be shy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us here today. Excellent. Okay, fantastic. At this moment, I want to move on to our first agenda item, a presentation by the Department of Environmental Protection on noise and grease issues. Sorry about that. Today, we will speak, or the Department of Environmental Protection will speak on noise issues, and for the following month, sewer reconstruction. At this time, I'd like to thank our Borough President, who has to move on to his next agenda, for joining us. But if I can have DEP begin their presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for inviting us here. My name is Charles Sturkin with the Department of Environmental Protection. With me is Denise Hubbard, who's your borough representative. I head up a unit at Department of Environmental Protection, which is a community resource, which I'm here to offer to all of you for businesses in your communities. We offer advice, grant information, and most importantly, how to comply with the environmental laws. We gear it overwhelmingly towards small businesses. We've been running for about 3 years, and we are happy to offer you, your merchants associations, bids, or any other group that you want to coordinate. We'll come out there and we'll do business workshops. Our main focus has been on noise, what we call commercial noise, which is still the #1 quality of life complaint in the city. DEP gets a small amount of those. The NYPD gets overwhelmingly huge amounts of noise complaints. We get about 10 to 15% of those, which we try to handle. The other issue we're here today on is for the hospitality industry and restaurants and bars, grease management. It's a huge problem nationwide. No one likes to think of it. It's not an appetizing thing for a breakfast conversation, but we do enforce these rules because they're overtaxing the sewer systems, and when that happens, it backs up into your businesses and homes, and it can be attributed to about over 60% of all flooding issues in the country are caused by grease buildup in the sewer system. So we have 2 brief videos which we've created for businesses, and now that the Borough President has them loaded up, you can get them through him, our website, or always reach Denise Hubbard. So we'd like to start with the noise.
As a business owner, did you know you are required to properly manage your grease? If not, your pipes can clog, and your building and surrounding area could flood, severely disrupting your business and the bottom line. All commercial kitchens cook with and generate waste from fat, oil, and grease is the main cause of sewer backups. The remedy?
Grease interceptors.
What's a grease interceptor?
Grease interceptors stop fat, oil, and grease from entering and clogging your pipes and sewer lines.
When grease builds up in the sewer lines, it can lead to backups in your restaurant and expose you, your neighborhood, and the environment to untreated sewage. Your restaurant may also have to be shut down.
City regulations require grease interceptors in all commercial kitchens to capture fat, oil, and grease from food scraper and pot wash sinks, woks, floor drains, and other fixtures. Whether you're building a new kitchen or taking over an existing one, you will need a licensed professional to measure the fixtures, then size and install your grease interceptor. And make sure it's not installed backwards. After one owner bought his place, he found a filthy, non-functioning unit.
Improperly sized interceptors can cost you big time, and a notice can be issued to correct the problem by the deadline.
How do grease interceptors work?
Interceptors separate fat, oil, and grease, sometimes known as brown grease, from wastewater. Brown grease floats to the top until it's removed. It should be thrown away in a secure bag or collected by a licensed waste carter. Brown grease should not be confused with yellow grease, which is cooking oil waste. Don't throw it away. Yellow grease should be recycled and picked up by a licensed carter.
How do you maintain your grease interceptor?
Checking and cleaning is key. To clean, remove the cover with the proper tool, like a wrench or a key, and scoop out any grease and oil that's collected on top. Remove solid food or debris that's settled at the bottom, or hire a pro to do it for you. Always put food scraps in the trash and strainers over drains. To avoid lost revenue from closings, property damage caused by sewer backups, fines, and environmental problems, always make sure your grease interceptor is clean and functioning properly. For more info, go to nyc.gov and search Grease Interceptor.
What's the balance between providing the best experience for your customers and avoiding noise violations in the city that never sleeps? Residents crave the vibrant clubs, bars, restaurants, and nightlife synonymous with New York City. And all New Yorkers benefit from the economic engine of the hospitality industry. Yet noise complaints, including complaints about music, remain among the top calls to 311.
There are several occasions that would constitute a noise violation. One, readings taken from a residential apartment, and also readings taken from outside the commercial establishment.
How are complaints responded to?
If music or noise is spilling out into the street, a sound reading is taken from the street at least 15 feet from the source. Noise cannot exceed 7 decibels above ambient noise at night or 10 decibels above ambient noise during the day. If music or noise is heard in someone's apartment or home, a sound reading is taken from within that residence. It should not exceed 42 decibels. Sounds from excessive bass music, which we often feel as a vibration, can also be a violation. Neither music nor announcements can be broadcasted directly into the street to attract customers to your business.
If you are in violation, how do you correct the issue?
First, work with an acoustical consultant to assist you. The Department of Environmental Protection lists approved consultants on its website. Ways to reduce noise include installing a limiter to your sound system, soundproofing your doors and walls, installing sound isolating treatments to floors, walls, and ceilings, installing acoustic door and window treatments, finally, using directional loudspeakers.
From a residential unit, the first offense is $3,200 and could range up to $24,000. From the outside, the first offense is $1,700 and could range over $5,000.
First-time violators can avoid a fine if the violation was based on a reading from a person's residence, you admit liability, and you show that you have mitigated the issue. For more information, please visit nyc.gov.
Thank you. So these 2 videos we offer to businesses. You can then sort of re-gift them to people by going to our website, nyc.gov/edu, which stands for Economic Development Unit. And they're called Business How-To Videos. We'll be creating more. Next one upcoming, I think, is construction noise, which is a big community problem too. So with that, I offer our services to any of your boards or businesses, and we'll come out there and give a workshop for these folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturkin. Community Board 4.
Hi, Denise. I'd like to know if you have pamphlets on what we just saw on that video, so that we, when meeting with our business owners, we can distribute stuff like that.
We do have pamphlets intended for business, both on noise and on grease. And
I'm hoping you could settle a discussion that 3 district managers had a few months ago. 3 district managers went into a bar, and
after work, right?
Of course, and having a wellness drink, of course, and there was an outdoor seating area and external speakers, and we had a discussion. Well, where would DEP measure the noise? Is it 15 feet from the building? Is it 15 feet from the external wall? 3 district managers had 3 different answers, so I'm hoping you could settle that.
There's two issues. One is you are not supposed to place speakers out into the public right-of-way, because the public, theory is, the public has a right to walk down the street and not be bothered. It may not bother you, but it may bother somebody else. So there, you can be caught in a violation if it is shown that you intended to attract businesses into your establishment by creating this, there's case laws on this, by creating this welcoming environment, as some people say, but yet it bothers people. So that's one section of the code. If it was a decibel limit, saying no one was complaining, but the police officer went by, or one of our inspectors went by, and 15 feet measured from the front wall into the public right-of-way. From the front wall into the public right-of-way.
The front wall of the building or the front wall of the walled garden?
It would be the front wall of the building. I think it's a second or two in the video about that. Into the public right-of-way. And that's where the inspectors go out and they do readings.
Now, if 15 feet from that building is not in the public right-of-way, but still within their garden.
Into the sidewalk then? The public right-of-way is defined pretty broadly, I think, usually from property line out. So your property line may be part of the sidewalk, and then it's still probably within the public right-of-way, which includes the sidewalk, not just the street.
Okay, I think I'm still confused.
Well, no, they would measure from your, I don't know how the distance is in that particular instance, but from the wall, usually out 15.
But if their property...
But if they're still within the property line?
Yes.
Well, then they might take decibel readings out in the public right-of-way and see if you're...
So it might just go a little beyond just to be in the public right-of-way
Yes.
rather than within the
Yeah,
property.
there's multiple ways in the noise code where you can get yourself in trouble.
So I think we still probably have 3 different answers.
I'd like to see the place.
Josephine Beckman from Community Board 10, and Bay Ridge, Dyker Heights, and Fort Hamilton, which has 200 nighttime establishments, 200 licensed SLA premises, so noise complaint is a big part of what we deal with. My question is, can you share with us the number of enforcement inspectors for the Borough of Brooklyn, the total number, and the number of those that work the midnight to 7 a.m. Shift, which is when we get the majority of our complaints?
Yeah. Our enforcement staff works in all 5 boroughs. They're based in downtown Brooklyn. They used to be based in Manhattan. They've moved to 250 Livingston. We have, on the overnight, 2 4-member teams that work, and it gets increased from Friday nights to Sunday for response, because that's when our meter ticks up on complaints. Let me just step back and explain how, on a commercial bar or restaurant, we go about this. If you call 311, the complaints are sent to the NYPD in the first instance. If it's commercial music coming from a bar or restaurant, on the overnight, we get all the data coming into 311. The precincts who are in the community and can respond much quicker to a complaint, it's routed there. We look at that information. If it's coming from a resident, we then contact the resident. by letter, or if there's a phone number, we'll call them, and then we'll put it on our radar to go out and inspect. If the person wants us to do that, the first line of defense is the police and the community for various reasons. One is resources on our part too. But we do look at every commercial music complaint that comes in overnight.
Even if it's funneled to NYPD?
Even if it's funneled, because then we'll contact a resident who's complaining to see if they want us to come to their apartment or home to take readings, or a lot of these places are recurring, and we'll have them anyway from other sources, either through community boards or through elected officials. But if you want, and I know you have a heavy concentration of bars and restaurants there, we can set up a workshop in your community also.
The grease interceptor thing, which I had no idea existed. And lately, we haven't been having complaints about people actually seeing restaurant owners pouring oil into the sewers. We used to have that years ago, but I haven't seen that. But it doesn't mean that it's not happening, because curiously, a lot of the sewers that are clogged are within the vicinity of restaurants in my district. So I'm wondering, do you have like a schedule to go inspect restaurants for their interceptor things and see how clean they are, and also the thing with the barrel, and is that like a health department and you guys where they would save the outside or whatever oil you call it, and who regulates that?
Okay, if you saw in the video, there's brown grease that goes through the sinks and collects in the trap.
Right.
And then yellow grease from like a fryer-later. As we know, they fry, deep frying. That is called what we call yellow grease. It has to be recycled. We do routine inspections of restaurants. There's about 24,000 in the city. We work with the health department on that. You have to show us documentation of who picked up that oil, and it has to be from a licensed carter. It's become a very precious commodity because they make biodiesel fuel out of yellow grease. So we've even had issues, I know out in Brighton, we had some thefts, and I think in Queens too. People are stealing this if restaurants leave it out because they turn it around. I mean, the standard is your yellow grease gets turned around from your restaurant for about 50 cents a gallon. The next guy refines it for $1.25, and the next guy $3, and then it's sold at the pump for $4.50, I think, about. So yellow grease is good in that it's helping us with biofuels, but we do routinely go, and we'll see if your the grease trap is clean, and you'll get a notice or an order if it's not, and then your grease, yellow grease has to be shown to be being picked up. We ask for current receipts, and you have to keep them for a year.
Okay, thank you.
But it's very valuable these days.
Mr. Esposito?
Just two brief questions. Are the videos available in any other language?
Unfortunately, no, but we do have the pamphlets in different languages.
And the second part, have you given copies of these videos to the business improvement?
We have sent to many. We keep all of the bid information on our email list with trade associations, different business associations, and we've sent them out. We also, when you have a restaurant week, we blast them out after the restaurant week to all the participants in, let's say, Taste of Brooklyn or Restaurant Week in Brooklyn.
I have Sean.
Just to follow up on Josephine Beckman's question regarding DEP noise inspections. There's 2 4-member teams, and it's the number 1311 call. And in our district, it's the number 1311 call, and we have far fewer than 200 establishments. How are those teams dispatched? How is the priority of those dispatches figured out? Is it by number of complaints, or is it order in which received? And what would be the typical inspection time between complaint and inspection?
As I said, if we have the data from the overnight on the NYPD, and we've contacted a person. It takes some time to set up an inspection in their apartment. Those things come in and they're prioritized chronologically, or elected officials contact us, or community boards. We usually get it through the suburb. And then we'll go out on those priorities. If we know there's a persistent problem Friday night on X street, at X club, and X bar, usually we get it from multiple sources, and the media, we will go and route it that way. The inspections set up, scheduled in a person's apartment are more difficult, but believe we don't have any lack of work. They're constantly out there on the overnights. And they work in teams sometimes with the NYPD where they need our resources.
Tully Construction is building a grease recycling facility within my community district, so I'm concerned about trucks bringing product to that facility. Grease is flammable. Is it considered a hazardous material?
Grease is not. Brown grease, it might be because it's part of the wastewater stream. It's not like an ultra hazardous material, but it's considered a waste product. It's like other waste from sanitation.
Are there any restrictions beyond truck routes on the streets?
I think the state gets into your waste hauling business when it comes to grease. The state would license you and city sanitation too. Or the Business Integrity Commission too would get a part of that.
With the recycling of grease, we actually
On
don't
pickups and transporting.
We really don't have much to do with that.
The state
we have a number of sanitation facilities in my district that have interstate municipal waste haulers, and we have a problem with them parking in the district and being in places they should not be for lengthy periods of time. I'm worried that we're going to have the same problem with the grease haulers. Does DEP play any role in summoning them or enforcement, or is that strictly NYPD and
they're hanging
sanitation?
out and idling than we do on air resource issues, on anti-idling laws, because you're not permitted to idle any longer than, depending on where you are, for different reasons.
They aren't necessarily idling the sanitation vehicles, but they're parking alongside residential property.
No, but if you have I would work through BIC, the Business Integrity Commission, because they're really focused on the carders and the licenses.
Our last question.
If we have a restaurant that has speakers at the front of the restaurant, speakers outside at the front of the restaurant that are permanently installed so that they can only emanate sound on the public right-of-way. If those speakers are not on when your agents are out there, could they still take some action against the restaurant?
Well, we do. If we have complaints from community boards, we will go and talk to the owners and say we've received a complaint. A lot of businesses we don't hear complaints about. But if one person complains, then we're going to go. But if we have some information that they've mounted and it's onto the public way, we will go and speak to them. Again, there's the decibel level that you can measure out in the street, or, as I said, there are some businesses that, it doesn't sound like this, that attract businesses in. Usually there's a vocal component, like come in for the special or something like that. You get that in commercial.
If they're permanently mounted but not on, then you're not getting any decibel reading from them, but they can only be used in the public right-of-way. You know, what action could you take in that?
Well, we would go out and we have spoken to businesses saying, we've noticed you have this. You should be aware that if we take readings out in the public right-of-way and you're found a violation, it's going to be very costly.
So basically a warning.
Yes.
Okay. And on the...
By the way, there was some movement to legislatively change some of that, so the reading, because we understand it's an attraction for businesses with outdoor cafe seating sort of proliferating, but it hasn't come to fruition yet, but it's still being drafted to lessen some of that. But if you live upstairs, you know, we're going to hear a complaint.
Right. And on grease, do you have any idea what percentage of the yellow grease is actually recycled? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's really grown because of the value of it. In the city, I forgot, it's an amazing amount of, I think it was like 12 million gallons last year or the year before.
But what percentage is that?
The percentage, it's fairly high. It's BIC claims, and they track this, it's in the 90%. Well, Carter's will pick it up for free because they're turning it around for money.
Sure. Is there anything that could be done to reuse brown grease?
They're working on that. I think Tully is looking at the brown grease aspect. So far, there's not much of a market, but there are people really trying to find out about that.
Thank you.
Hope this segment was enlightening, despite the fact that it is early morning and we're eating. I think we all learned a little bit more about grease, and we hope to see what would be 100% recycling of this particular industry. I know that there's a lot of biodiesel that's being created from using what would be cooking grease. And that is what we're preparing for as far as the future workforce in the green industry. So we look forward to further presentation from DEP next month in April. I want to thank Charles Sturkin and Denise Hubbard for their presentation this morning. We're going to move on to what would be the next segment of this agenda, and I believe just for the sake of time, we're going to be able to shorten our agenda for the future months, so that we're not keeping you here. We're only in the second portion, and there's 4 segments for this agenda. So we want to just make sure that we're conscious of everyone's time. Our Borough Hall Topographical Bureau. They've never or rarely have the opportunity to come before you, and we want to be able to showcase their role as far as DOT roadway repair and maintenance utility coordination meetings, which they are responsible for participating in. Many of the concerns relayed from the last meeting were about notice of street repair and how to better coordinate agencies needing what would be conducting work underground. This presentation is informational only and should be understood in conjunction with our third agenda item. So we want to make sure that we had Topographical Bureau from Borough Hall give their presentation so you have a better understanding as to what role we play in the borough from Borough Hall, and our office manager from the Topo unit, as we call it, in Borough Hall is Kelly O'Brien. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us.
The Department of Transportation's Brooklyn Roadway Repair and Maintenance Unit, led by Director Joseph Carbone, holds a utility coordination meeting every month to discuss the agency's yearly paving schedule. Each borough's roadway repair and maintenance unit holds one of these meetings to discuss their borough's paving schedule and to coordinate with the private utilities and other city agencies that dig up the city's streets, and to make sure that everything is done properly and that none of the utilities dig up a street right after it has been newly paved. The utilities kept abreast of the schedule and leeway time between milling and paving, so they have a chance to go and check their equipment to make sure it wasn't damaged or broken, and to repair if necessary without holding up the schedule set forth by roadway maintenance. At this meeting, there are representatives from several DOT departments, for example, capital planning, special events, highway inspection and quality assurance, HIQA, and Borough Commissioner's Office. Other city agencies are DEP, DDC, MTA, buses, and private utilities like Verizon, Con Ed, Time Warner, National Grid, along with myself as a representative for the Borough President's Office. The Borough President's Office Topographical Bureau functioned at this meeting to inform roadway maintenance of the legal status of the borough's streets and if there are any plans to demap or map streets within the borough. I provide DOT with the legal status of the borough streets means that we indicate to them whether the city, specifically DOT, has jurisdiction over these streets for street purposes, meaning does the street legally belong to the city in order for the city to maintain by way of paving or reconstruction. By providing DOT with the legal status of the streets, they are better able to put together a list of streets within the borough that legally belong to the city so that the funding allotted for the paving of said streets is spent appropriately.
Thank you, Kelly. Again, that was an informational just report. Any questions for Kelly on that?
There was a time in which DOT used to give us the annual paving plan for each district during the borough budget consultation. I haven't received that in a number of years. I'm not particularly concerned about where I get that information. If that's something that the borough unit has, I'd love it if you would share that with us.
Yeah, I actually have a meeting tomorrow, their first one for the season, and I will mention that to them, and if they do not provide it, I will provide it when I receive it. You're welcome.
Any questions, Sean? Okay, thank you, Kelly. So we're going to move on to our third agenda item. Now, this was originally what we were supposed to discuss at the February meeting regarding DOT an online street permit system and how to make the process more efficient and consistent. DOT could not present at that time, but we had an open discussion instead on other DOT issues. So I'd like to ask DOT to come up now and handle that agenda item for us.
Good morning, my name is Gary Small, New York City DOT Construction Unit.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Nesser from the Brooklyn Borough Commissioner's Office.
So I think the concerns were basically, if I remember correctly, no, you guys take that, I'm going to take this. Okay. I believe that the concerns were about the permit system and how the permit system is not working efficiently for the community board offices and trying to determine when permits are granted to open up the streets. Is that what we talked about last time? And that was the crux of the problem. And that and so the notification, so if they're relying on the online system to get notification because they're not getting notification other ways. So there's a twofold issue. Number one, there's no notice, and if they're relying on the online system for notice, if that's not working for them, how can we make the whole process more accessible for the community board offices as well as make it more efficient for everyone involved? Is my understanding of what the concern was. Is that correct, or are there other?
That was part of my concern, yes, sir.
That was the concern,
That is
yeah.
that, in the past, when there's an issue with the street being open for whatever reason, my staff and I, we try to navigate through the online permissions limit. It never works for us.
Right, just to add to that, if instead of having notification that a street opening is going to happen, sorry, Sean Campbell, CP14, rather than having notification that a street opening is going to occur, we find out a street has been opened and then go onto the system to find out why, who it is, and what it's about.
Well, most of y'all.
Sorry, there's an open chair there. Just want to say thank you to Councilmember Haim Deutsch for joining us at the Borough Service Cabinet meeting. Thank you, Councilmember, for being here.
Well, all our permits are online for sure. I mean, you can check anything. You can check any permit that you need online, but to notify you before it goes online, the application comes in, we give them the permit, and most of all of them are like Con Ed, Keyspan, they all go out and do their work from the time we get them the permit.
Can we search by community district?
You can search by borough.
There's actually a filter for...
The filter for community board, but it's actually easy by borough.
How far in advance of the work to be done do you issue the permit so that if we were to go online to search for who got a permit, we're not searching because we see someone in the street, that we can go prior to that, like schedule a time within our own offices and say, you know, let's see if anything is coming up. Because a lot of times, you don't know, you just see the street open.
Well, if we give a permit today, you can go online today and check the same permit. You can check any permit the same day we give it. Now, if the permit don't go on some kind of hold or something, you can see it.
Yeah, I got that. I'm saying, if they got the permit today, can they go out this afternoon and dig up the street?
It all depends what time they're supposed to start the work now.
So
It's a time
so
frame.
there is no time frame. You just issue things and.
No, we do give them time. They have certain time to work in certain areas.
I think what she's asking is what's the advance notification that they have to give to DOT in the application process?
No, they can come in the same day and get a permit the same day.
Yeah, so is there any checks and balances that, Con Ed, do they still call themselves that? Con Ed, Brooklyn Union, all these other people, they're asking for a permit and they're in the general area and everyone's getting a permit to open up the street.
No, we don't give everyone. We don't give everyone the same time to work out there. We might give Con Ed Monday to Friday. We might give a sewer guy on the weekend. Because we try not to crowd the street at once.
Section 86 of the city charter requires that the community board's offices and the borough president's office be notified whenever there's a disruption to the pavement, anytime anybody's going to dig. Your permitting system does not notify us of any permits that are issued in our districts. We have to look them up. And what we're saying is that we need your permit system to be proactive in notifying us about anything that affects the pavement in our district. The utility companies, to varying degrees, make some effort to do that, but the consistency is, let's just say that they're inconsistent when it goes across the board from utility company to utility company. The bottom line is nobody gets to dig unless DOT issues a permit. And we need to be notified by DOT or by the people pulling the permits, doesn't really matter to me. Somebody needs to notify us to be in compliance with Section 86 of the city charter. Again, we said the same thing last month. You can go to videotape.
That you wrote up that by charter.
Yeah.
And I think also, Josephine Backman, Community Board 10, is that the charter specifies, as Craig said, that not only do the boards have to be notified, but the charter explicitly states we need 10 days, it's filed at least 10 days in advance of the intended action with the construction coordinator and consulting engineer. Some agencies do this quite well. Time Warner comes to mind. We get a notification within oftentimes 10 days to 2 weeks. The other utilities do not notify us, and that becomes problematic for us in our offices to do our job in coordinating some of these street events. And as Sean Campbell mentioned, unfortunately, most times we don't learn of a street opening until we get a call from a resident or a business that it's actually taking place, and it's required in the charter, and that system has to be worked out in some ways in the permitting that we can receive or generate some kind of notification.
I just want to clarify. So you're saying in non-emergency situations, someone can get a permit within a couple hours?
Right.
Non-emergency?
Yes.
It was my understanding that there was only the required notification for street closure, not for any cut in the street.
No street closure at all. What street closure?
For a street closure, that you'd be required notification if there were going to be a street closure due to construction. It's not our policy that every time that there's any kind of cut in the street that there's a requirement to notify the agency. That's what I'm saying.
Believe me, that used to happen all the time. All the time. That was a requirement. It's always been. It just got stopped without any explanation, any discussion with the community board. So.
Well, most of the time that your utility company is always supposed to notify you before they even go in there and start digging.
The issues that we had happen in our board based upon non-notification. Permits were issued to DEP and other supporting contractors for a 3-month project on a commercial corridor that calls for the repair of an 84-inch sewer pipe taking up 560 feet. The community board wasn't notified, the merchants, nor the residents. And we really need to have that notification in order to get the message out and to advocate for our community. And by you giving us that information, we can go after the other agencies and be part of the process, not be left out.
Well, in this case, DEP left, but when there's a DEP project, they do the notification, not DOT.
Yes, I understand, and we will be addressing that, but you gave the street permits.
Just because, in our case, the DEP did the notifications, so we're allowed to give the permit.
But they didn't. And you're not ensuring that everybody was notified.
Andrew, I think this discussion right now is shows exactly why we need, and it was brought up at previous initial meetings, why we need sometimes for the borough commissioners to show up. And so far, the only borough commissioner who comes consistently is Commissioner Jeffries from Parks. Because a lot of times the liaisons or those who are speaking for the agencies, there seems to not, I guess, have full idea of what the rules and regulations are pertaining to the charter. So I would make the request, I hope I'm speaking for all the DMs, that we try to get Borough Commissioner Palmieri at the next meeting so we can get some clarity on what exactly is the policy for DOT for this issue.
May I piggyback on that? And I know next month we're having a meeting with DEP. Can we request that somebody be here in a position for policy? Please?
That's both agencies.
Absolutely.
DEP and
I recently had Verizon in my district doing work in what is the parking lane. And they took parking as they're permitted to do, but there was very little advance notice, almost none, and the signage didn't indicate that Verizon was who was doing the work, didn't have any job information, it didn't have any contact information. What are DOT's requirements of permittees when they are taking parking?
Well, for sure, the notification is supposed to go out before they take the parking in the neighborhood, and plus it's supposed to have a permit that allows them to take away parking too. They're supposed to have a permit, application number 221, on site at all times.
So what are there any requirements as to what their signage says when they put up signs that say no parking Tuesday?
Well, it's supposed to pick only on the area where they're working at. They don't supposed to expand it. They're like supposed to no parking like Monday to Friday. If they're working there all week, it goes along with their permit. If their permit will have them working from Monday to Friday, the parking is supposed to be taken away from Monday to Friday in order for them to get back in and out of the site.
So the key piece of information for constituents or residents is the permit on site.
Right. All utilities for sure will be posted on site.
And where does that physically get posted?
They're usually posted on their barricades.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So, anyone else have a comment? So, Councilmember, yes.
Good morning. I believe it's still morning, right? Okay, a few meetings is. I just want to mention how crucial it is for the city agencies to let the community boards know of any type of permits that are being issued, especially when people wait for accessoride, people go to treatments, parties on blocks, birthday parties, or even religious holidays. You have a religious holiday, you want to have a peaceful holiday, and all of a sudden you hear drilling outside, or you can't get up your block, you can't find parking. So this is a very crucial thing that the community boards need to be notified, and it doesn't seem like we're going to have an answer here today of if the community boards will be notified, and I believe at the next meeting, I felt it's important to be here this morning, and I believe at the next meeting we should, like you mentioned, Community Board 3, we should have someone from policy here and some deputy commissioners to basically, tell us, what the charter is and what's going to happen in the future. On a second note, I wanted to mention that, having this open dialogue between the elected officials, the community boards, sometimes the elected officials, we rely on the community boards to give us information. And if they don't get this information, we don't get this information. So we need to disseminate this and know what's going on within our district when constituents call and about what's going on in the areas. So I just wanted to, I'm on the same page with everyone here, and I think it's something that's very important for all of us to follow up on.
I'd like to just underscore the points that have been made and how important it is for the appropriate notification be given to the community boards. There was once a project that was going on in my district, and it happened around this time of the year. As we go into the springtime, the schools, they have their required testing and things of that nature. It was digging in the streets. The kids couldn't concentrate. The principal had to call us to figure out who was working there because there was no prior notification. Maybe it took too long for us to figure out who was doing what and ask them to at least adhere to the schedule of the, I think it was citywide test or whatever it was. So, you know, to underscore what the council person said, there are many reasons, number one, that there needs to be the coordination of when and who was working in the street, but, you know, it goes from sickness, education, everything. And to leave the community boards out of such a process, it's almost as if the computerization made it more difficult. When in fact we got paper lists, even though we had a lot of paper in our office, it worked better. Somebody could track down what was going on where. Since the computerization happened, we became like not as important as we should be. Thank you very much.
Well, in that particular case, though, you're saying that you had a list, and after you got the call, you could go on the list. But I don't understand. After you get that call, you can go on the computer and put in the
What I am
exact
saying,
street.
Ms. Rhonda, is that when in fact we had lists coming, not only did it help out in a situation such as I just described, but it gave the information often enough where there wasn't the need to make a phone call or go on a computer or look. There was something in the office. There was notification. Oftentimes now, the notification does not exist.
So it seems like when everything was computerized, that the notification
That's just
stopped.
what I said. But back in the day, because I've been around from that day, there were lists that we were given, and those lists had street cuts by everybody that we can think of. That doesn't happen anymore.
We're going to have today, but I think it's helped clarify some of the questions that we all have collectively, and hopefully DOT can then come back to us with information on Section 86 and how they're going to be complying with that in the future. Yeah? Thank you, guys. Okay, so our fourth and final agenda item is with the Department of Buildings, and it is responsive to the district manager's concern memo that was sent out regarding quality of life response times for building code violations.
Good morning, everyone. A lot of you know me. I'm Ben Colombo from the New York City Department of Buildings. I'm one of two intergovernmental affairs liaisons in Brooklyn. Unfortunately, I was not able to obtain all the data I wanted to, show everything clearly. But what I am able to share with you this morning, and I promise I will get the rest of that data to give a complete picture, is that it seems that the belief or the assumption among the community boards is that the C's and D's, what we call the C's and D's, the low priority quality of life complaints, are becoming a much higher proportion of your total buildings complaints. So from the data I was able to get of just B's and C's, the C's represent a fifth of total complaints between B's and C's. And the D's, I've been told anecdotally, are even less. The D's represent less than half of the C's, so they'd account for about 1/10 of our total complaints. We do have, for last year in Brooklyn, to give an example, 2013, we had 24,289 B and C complaints. Of those, 4,000 were C's. Of the D's, I don't have an exact number, but we believe they were just under 2,000. That's what I have for figures. What we've also been doing, and for a few years we've been offering the half-day inspections. Every year at budget consultations, we mention them. I know 1 or 2 times a year I'll generally mention them outside, but they're not being utilized. That's a great way get to those complaints that just haven't been gone to quickly enough, those Cs and Ds that are really the thorns in your side. So I want to remind everyone, let's do those half-day inspections, each community board. We can get one going, and that'll be a great way to cut down on those. And also just letting us know which are the priorities for you guys. We obviously can't expedite everything. Some days I have trouble expediting anything. But if you let us know which are those real Cs and Ds that have a B, or even, well, not an A, but are a B priority to you, we'll continue working our best to get those down and to expedite those on a case-by-case basis, of course.
So if we don't get that construction work as it's being done, within a day, sometimes the turnaround time could be as little as 3 or 4 days. Once the job is done, it's very hard to get it undone, and I know that's a whole different conversation, but that really, because it's very difficult to undo once something is done.
Right, but if it's while the construction's being done, to my mind, it should either be a work contrary to permit, which is a B, or the permit may have, we may need to do an audit, which our audits we're actually really quick with, and then if it's, if the audit fails, we're usually issuing an intent to revoke on it.
Right. Well,
You say if it's, I don't handle your area often, and I wouldn't imagine that a zoning issue during construction would go in as a D complaint. I mean, I would put his work contrary to permit.
It has been, and perhaps maybe it's the way the 311 operator enters it, but we had one recently where a building owner had a permit to do an alt-1 job. Part of the permit was to create an accessory parking space that I could look at and tell you was not zoning compliant. We called, we requested an audit, it failed. Unfortunately, the work is completed, and now there's a curb cut, there's a parking pad, a violation to 2 sections of the zoning resolution, and yet that will remain, as long as the building owner doesn't sell his property, because the laws don't have teeth. So it's become a problem within our district. We take, and we look for these items. The streetscape text amendment's important to us, and our residents are very aware of those rules and regulations. It just seems that it's difficult, and it's being entered as a D priority, and those inspections are taking longer and longer. But perhaps it's a way that we can change the way we enter those complaints.
Okay. Yeah, well, that certainly doesn't sound like it should have been a D to me. Audit was good, and usually we're very quick with that. I don't know, where it was in the phase of construction that got completed before we could stop it. But I mean, for going forward, we can work together. I can't, again, I'm going to say it, I can't always expedite complaints, but if the district managers let us know which are their real priorities, we certainly do try. We can use the half-day inspections, which have been underutilized. And I think just by doing that, we can really make a difference in how you guys are seeing the Cs and Ds.
It seems to me that fines from the Department of Buildings are not really a disincentive to anybody who's really determined to build something illegally. So I've been thinking about, well, how do you disincentivize people? And I was wondering if the Department of Buildings, when you find an illegal occupancy, when you find an illegal subdivision or SRO, you turn that information over to the Department of Finance, the State Department of Taxation and Finance, and the IRS for unreported income?
My guess is no, but I don't know, so I'll find out.
That'd be a real big disincentive for those doing illegal construction if they thought there was a chance that they would be gone after by the IRS.
Maybe.
So, Ben, thanks for doing the preliminary research. I think one of the concerns that we had that was touched on, but perhaps not isolated, was not necessarily the volume of Cs and Ds that the department is getting, since they're a 5th and a 10th, but more the general response times. And it's true that you offer the half-day inspections. I think we take you up on that, and we certainly do flag you when something comes in that's important, and you've been tremendously helpful in getting a lot of issues resolved. But in general, what we were looking for was whether or not the department had targets for response times so that the Cs and the Ds wouldn't fall between the cracks and take months to resolve, and we get to a situation like Josephine's where, the complaint may be made either as something is being constructed or on the verge of completion, and by the time you guys get out there, it's already done and it's going to be in place perhaps for generations. So have you, in the course of your research, determined what the average response times are for A's, B's, C's, and D's? And does the department have specific targets for those response time categories?
Yes, so our targets are actually mandated by the mayor's office. We refer to as the MMR, mayoral mandated response times. For A's, they're 36 hours. We're currently in Brooklyn at about 8 hours response for A's. For B's, the mandate is 45 days, and we're getting closer. I don't have the exact. I know we were at one point at about 65 days on B's, which is well outside. But I think now we're getting closer, closer to the 45. I don't know exactly where we are. I wasn't able to get that information. But part of that was that we split enforcement and development. So what we did was, instead of having, several inspectors who all did everything, we split it between complaint response and the development inspections, which are necessary for construction, permitted construction as it goes through. So by splitting that, it's making the process a lot more efficient, and we're having completed buildings with less problems. But it did give us a great backlog on our Bs, especially on our Bs. So the first year was really figuring out that split, and now that we're in the second year of that, we're starting to really catch up on the backlog.
And do you have response times for the D, C's, and D's?
I'm sorry. So for C's and D's, the MMR is 90 days. And last I heard, I wasn't able to get a response now for what 13 was, but in 2012, we were, I think, at 92 days. Something about that. Don't quote me on 92, but we were just outside it.
Now, would you attribute the failure to meet the targets to a lack of manpower and resources? Is it, if you had more inspectors, would you be able to generate responses faster?
I can't answer a question. I really can't answer. We don't talk about inspector loads. Obviously, if we had more inspectors, we could. Do we feel that we have enough inspectors with further, efficiencies? Yes.
I ask because one of the other roles of the community boards, aside from monitoring service delivery, is to put in capital and expense budget requests each year, as you know. And I know in our district, we always support additional buildings inspectors being hired as an expense budget priority for our district. So I guess I'm wondering whether our elected officials are actually heeding that, and whether or not that's still a relevant request that we should continue to put in. So I'm hearing a little ambiguity.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I have to be ambiguous. Traditionally, we have not asked for additional inspectors. Whether or not there's a need, I really can't say. But more would be more and would be able to handle more things.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry for the ambiguity.
Every year, and we will continue to.
Good.
Josephine?
As far as the C&D complaints, if we could have that data, sent to us, that would be helpful for 2013. Because
Absolutely.
although we have in comparison to the total number of building complaints, and I would agree that C's and D's are small, although we feel, in terms of number, sheer numbers. But we have seen within our board that those response times are much greater than the 90 days. And in some instances, 6 to 8 months. So I'd be interested in taking a look at that data.
Absolutely. No, I tried to have it, and I did not receive it in time, but I'm still working on getting it.
Just a very quick concrete example. A report of an illegal curb cut is a C or a D.
A D.
And it's a D, and it takes 90 days to respond to a D. And the illegal curb cut that I reported most recently, the cut and the driveway was completed in 4 days.
I understand.
Anyone else? Okay.
What happens then when, you know, you actually go out and inspect, not you personally, but you find a violation, you issue the violation, they go to a hearing, they're fined, but 2 years later, the curb cut is still there.
If we receive another complaint about it, we'll write another violation. And that violation would be for failure to comply.
And then that's been repeated, but it's still there. I mean, if we go there now on our half-day things, we'll see it there, which is like 3 years now. So then what?
How often can you write that sum? I guess that's,
Yeah, and then we repeat the same.
but how often? Every 30 days?
No, not every 30 days. I don't have an exact time. We do it when we get another complaint. We don't go back proactively.
A number of years ago, a short time ago, did a parking fairness initiative in which we took a look at some of the parking issues within our community, and a big part of that report was about illegal curb cuts. And we did an extensive study, and I'm going to share that with all of you today because it delved into some of the DOB issues, some of the legislative ideas and initiatives that we had suggested and that we're going to soon take a second look at. So I'm going to share that with all of you today. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Okay. So, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ben, very much for. But everyone else can stay for another hour or two, right? You guys are okay? We're going to order lunch. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the March Borough Service Cabinet meeting. I know there were some issues with some of the presentations and some of the agenda items, and we're going to be addressing that in the months to come. So you have my commitment on that we can solve these problems that you've brought to our attention. And I know when you all sat down with the Deputy Borough President back in January, there was a commitment made from Borough Hall to really work proactively with you. So we will continue to meet that commitment and make sure that your needs are being addressed and that the agencies are able to work with us hand in hand to provide service to all of our constituents. Having said that, if there are additional issues or initiatives or things you want to share with us, you want to present, things you want to bring up, please feel free either before the meeting to reach out or at the meeting during our open forum to bring them up. This is an open forum for all of us to use. And having said all of that, I will say, yep. Yes.
Because at the beginning of the meeting, I apologize. Celeste James, U.S. Postal Service. At the beginning of the meeting, thank you. The community boards are always invited to share something, but you have to make a specific request for the other agencies.
Oh, they weren't? Okay, my mistake. I thought it was an open invitation, but my apologies.
No, it's always to the community boards. And good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to let you know very briefly that there is going to be a second-day celebration of the Shirley Chisholm stamp. I thank Mr. Butler very much for putting me in relationship with the CEO of Restoration Plaza. It is going to be at the Restoration Plaza in the lobby on Wednesday, March 26th at 10 o'clock in the morning. I would love to see you all there. I've sent an invitation to every community board website, email that I know. If you have not received it, please let me know, because something went out to every single community board. Please make sure that your local elected officials, the people that you're in relationship with, are aware of this event. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much, everyone.
And this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Oh, wait, one more thing. Please return your placards to the front door. Sometimes people take it with them, and we don't know that they're missing. So leave your placards behind. Thanks.